set your annual goals and your visions with your team, but also if you're going to pivot and reassess those goals, like communicate well if you're going to make that shift. And it's okay if you downgrade a little, like, hey guys, we're not going to have 3 new people coming on. We're only going to have 1, but here's why, because of all the incredible stuff that we've implemented. And that's thanks to you and making all of our jobs easier. So that's a cool thing that we do every year in July, just because of the calendar year is our fiscal year.
Welcome to the Success Flow podcast, where our mission is simple: to be better each day and relay our findings with other relentless humans defining success for themselves. If that sounds like you, let's begin.
Dude, inspiration just struck you today, huh? You wanted to run it back 2 days in a row? Or not 2 days in a row, 2 pods in a row in one day.
Dude, I did. By the way, glad we're matching.
I noticed that as well. I changed halfway through the day, threw a different hat on and backwards, and it's like, whatever. We do look like
this is the new Success Flow uniform. I dig it.
If you're not watching on YouTube, you guys need to watch these YouTube videos, because they give you a good visual of what we're talking about with the hats and the matching and the wall behind me and all that stuff. So check us out on YouTube.
It does make a difference when you're looking at the visuals. But yes,
right.
Wanted to run it back. We had a guest scheduled today, and that didn't work out, which is all good. But we are in the theme of creation. And yeah, just showing up with that discipline, why not? And even though it took me a little while to prepare for this, I thought this is a perfect timing for this type of content. And so I appreciate you being down to jump back on and get back after it today.
Yeah, let's wrap, man. Let's go back and forth. We don't have a ton prepared, but we're gonna make this one a good one. I feel it. So what hit you? What couldn't wait?
Yeah. So on that topic, like creation over consumption, which has been my theme for the year, I really figured, like, given the time frame where we're at, that the listeners might be in a similar boat where we're halfway through the year. We're taking a look at the goals that we set out for ourselves, measuring, where we're at in regard to those goals. Maybe some folks set New Year's resolutions, which I've never been the biggest fan of just New Year's resolutions because of this exact theme, the fact that we can kind of reset and make a change at any given time. You can change anything in your life at any given moment, which is very powerful. But I thought it was just, given this time of year, having an audit and taking a look at the goals that we set out for ourselves might be some good timing at the halfway mark here at the year.
It's fantastic timing. I'm actually preparing for my team's quarterly meeting here in a couple of weeks. I put together a quarterly recap, right? Year over year, quarterly stuff. But in January, we set our annual goals. And then in July, we reassess what those annual goals were. And if we need to pivot and update, we relay those to the team. And it's top of mind. So I'm glad you came up with this topic. Had no idea this is what you wanted to talk about. So let's jump in. I know for like my perspective journey, like one of the things that we wanted, I got a small team, right? We're a small business supporting small business. And I got a team of 9 right now. And our goal this year was to get to a team of 12 by the end of the year, because that's what we thought we needed to scale appropriately. However, we also had many goals about developing internal efficiencies for our squad, and everyone's bought in. And we actually have quarterly rocks and things. If you're a Traction or EOS person, EOS is the Entrepreneur Operating System. It's a great book, Traction by Gino Wickman. We'll get into that someday down the road. But we implement some of this stuff, and we set our 90-day priorities, and a lot of it had to do with internal efficiencies this year. So that way we could continue scaling and growing and whatnot. Well, now, here we are, a team of 9, and we're going to reassess. And we're like, man, we may only need maybe 1 new hire. Sales are still where we expected them to be, but we've developed enough internal efficiency so far in the first 6 months that we don't need a team of 12. We need a team of 10 by the end of the year. So that's pretty cool to do that especially as a business owner, right? Like, set your annual goals and your visions with your team, but also if you're going to pivot and reassess those goals, like communicate well if you're going to make that shift. And it's okay if you downgrade a little, like, hey guys, we're not going to have 3 new people coming on. We're only going to have 1, but here's why, because of all the incredible stuff that we've implemented. And that's thanks to you and making all of our jobs easier. So that's a cool thing that we do every year in July, just because of the calendar year is our fiscal year. But personally, I agree with you. New Year's resolutions, I was never a big fan. You'd fall off by the end of January. And I look at it as more like a rolling 12 months. Like you start tomorrow, and then what's that next 12 months look like? I personally think I've probably had my most successful first 6 months in terms of what my goals are and the things I've set forth. And it all has to do with mindset, has to do with health. OppoFlow, what I'm building out there on oppoflow.com is far, far, far and above and away what I had anticipated or expected. In December, it was kind of a passion project, and now it's really turning it into something, which is a lot of fun. But I know my wife and we got some work to do because we did set out and say we would have 4 live concerts this year. And I think we've only got 1. So we got to book 3 of them just to hit that goal. Cause I don't want to tone that one down to 3. I want to get 4 live concerts by the end of this year. You got to love live music.
Those are the fun goals.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know who we're going to go see, but it doesn't matter who we're going to see.
You'll figure it out. That's kind of like the Matt Gardner approach, making sure that we're working to live, not living to work. I love that. I was curious when we were talking about this. One thing that was jumping out to me, and I've been referencing a lot, is Parkinson's law. Are you familiar with Parkinson's law?
Parkinson's disease, but I don't know anything about the law. It's something to do with time, right? It's something to do with how it's spent.
Different Parkinson, but the Parkinson's law in regard to time, and it kind of has, you can kind of stretch it and pivot it for other resource units too, like money. But at the end of the day, Parkinson's law states that any objective or task will shrink or expand according to the amount of time that it's given. So best example, I think, for myself is back in the day, you've got a term paper due, you've had 3 months to write it, but instead it's the night before the end of the semester when it's due, and you barely have a rough outline. You've now shrunken the amount of time that you have to write an entire term paper, find your sources, and cite the entire thing in an evening. Now, that is not the best way to use Parkinson's law. That is procrastination, which we've kind of talked a little bit on previous episodes here. But it also shows the power that we have when we do restrict our resources, and if we can do it intentionally, what the power is to add more tasks or more effective tasks. So the reason I brought that up is we're halfway at the year. Whatever goals that we set at the beginning of the year, maybe some of our listeners have been dragging their feet a little bit. They've had other priorities or maybe some emergencies that have gotten in the way. What we can do is take that year-long goal and shrink it into these last 6 months, which we know the second half of the year has its challenges, which we're going to talk about in a bit. But that was kind of the concept when I was thinking of Parkinson's law, our ability to really position these tasks and kind of mold time to our will to make sure we're getting the things done that we really, really want to, and not letting the non-urgent, non-essential stuff creep in.
Yeah, I think you got to back it up, right? So if you got 6 months to complete whatever you wanted to or set forth to accomplish this year, okay, well now, how do I back that into what I got to accomplish in 3 months, what I got to accomplish in 1 month, what I got to accomplish in 1 week, and kind of, going back to building those habits. But I love that law. I'm glad that was a great explanation, because it's like really just eliminating the unnecessary distractions when you hone in, when you shrink that time, right? Because you're laser focused. I need to complete this now, and these are the things I need to do. And when you can track that progress, that's the thing that keeps you going. That's what motivates you to continue down that path to reaching those goals. So you're right, though. End of the year, it's like holidays. And, I don't know about you, but my fall just flies. Like the first half of the year is so much slower, and it may or may not be the lull that we're in now, not being a huge MLB baseball fan where there's no basketball and no football. But once season starts for the sports and all the things and the kids and all that, back to school and all that kind of stuff, it just absolutely flies. This summer's also when, the summer solstice just passed, right?
Dude, that was one thing that just came up for me as well. And I used to think, I knew we used to celebrate the winter solstice. Being from a farm town in Missouri, there was this farmer that had this Christmas party right around Christmas time, and it was the winter solstice, which is the shortest day of the year. But the summer solstice is, it is the opposite, the longest day of the year. But there's this, not farming wise, we're not farming anymore or anything like that. The days get longer and hotter, this time of year, but there's something kind of symbolic or metaphorical to that longest day of the year and this kind of halfway mark. And it gives you that chance to not only just to be hot, a little bit of holiday time, maybe going on vacation, but a nice reset and kind of like the chance to wipe it clean. Again, not that we, need resolutions or any specific reason, but it is just another excuse to really have that halfway mark and do an audit about what's working and what's not.
Yeah. I mean, the audit is key because, like I said, the second half of the year, I know my October is absolutely insane. So you have the longest time right now, July, it's like wide open, no school, long days, reset, vacations, trips, whatever you need to do. But once October hits, I don't know if you know this, but every single woman in my life has a birthday in October. My daughter, my mom,
we have this in common.
Wife, my anniversary is in October, my wedding anniversary, my sister, and then Halloween to cap off the month. Like once we get to October, you're toast, right? School's back in August, September, you get to October, then my October is insane. I save up 11 months out of the year just for October for these beautiful women in my life. And I love them. I love it for it, but it just flies. And then it's like, if you haven't achieved what you wanted to achieve yet, it makes it that much harder to start working on those things in October, November, December, because then the holidays and New Year's, and then you're off to a new potentially a new resolution.
Man, it feels like it was probably 12 or 13 years. No, it was more than that. Well, I remember you and I were out to lunch, and this was back when we had like no responsibility. And I will never forget it because we were at Subway, which I don't think I've eaten at Subway since then. Not a big fan, but I know we used to sneak out to Subway because it was fast just down the street. And we were sitting there both talking about the schedule and like how the weekends were just one thing after another. We had nothing compared to what we have now. It was just like social parties and probably some vacations, stuff like that. And I was thinking, oh man, do you think it's really true what everyone says? Oh, time just keeps going faster and faster. And Paul and I were just talking about it. I feel like we talk about it every month, but it really does just seem to flywheel effect and just keep speeding up. And it just takes me back to that lunch that we had.
I remember that lunch. My son's favorite restaurant, he says, is Subway. So unfortunately or fortunately, we get I'm a little upset they got rid of the $5 footlongs though, man. It's breaking the bank these days for Subway dinner.
Inflation.
Big time. But you just celebrated a wedding anniversary this month. And I think that, like, right, every year that you celebrate an anniversary, it's like, dang, where'd last year go? I'm sure that was in your and Paula's conversation, just thinking about that. Like every single year, I know Kim and I do it, coming up on 13 years for us in October, but it's like when you hit that 1 year mark and then a 2 year, then 10, and it keeps going. And every single year, it's like a little time clock that you have. And it's just wild how fast it goes.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I have used, after our wedding was the first time I did more than a month off of booze, off of alcohol, and gave it up for 90 days. It was our 1 year anniversary. Oh, no. It was our wedding that I did that. And ever since then, I didn't even think about that going into this episode until you just brought it up. Ever since then, I have really approached this year as, okay, how's the health going? How are my contracts I've made with myself from from what I'm consuming, whether it be alcohol or the diet, which has gotten better and better each year. But this halfway mark is really a good time for that. And I didn't even think about it until you just brought it up. So that's awesome. I was thinking also,
you can count on me to help you remember your anniversary each year, if that's what you're telling me.
That's perfect. She likes to tell everyone that I lost my independence on Independence Day, that I said
lovely.
that to her.
You did get married in Ireland on July 4th.
Exactly. Yeah. The most, it wasn't as patriotic, but the Irish at least loved it.
Oh, it was epic. It was such a great wedding, man. That was a blast. But yeah, you bring up a good point. self-auditing, right? You bring up a good point. Self-auditing allows you to stay accountable, ensures that you're aligned with your goals, and it's an ongoing process of self-reflection. It helps you grow and adapt along the way. And so if you constantly, it maybe not daily, like I like to do it daily. I reflect on my day. I reflect with gratitude and like, how did my day go? I just rate it like a little thing, like a 1 through 10. What did I do? What did I set out to do in the morning? I outline that out. I write it down. And then, what are the opportunities and the wins and the education and things that I pick up throughout my day? And then at the end of the day, you rate it. And if it's not quite what you expected or you didn't accomplish everything, that's okay. It's not, it's one day. But how can I get better tomorrow? And just constantly self-auditing yourself and holding yourself accountable. Okay, I didn't quite get there today, but how can I be better tomorrow? And just trying to compound that.
That's the theme of this podcast, right? It's back to that water in that bamboo a little bit. Like those little tweaks, if we're off just a fraction of an inch, if we can improve it in the at least back to where we were from the mission-driven trajectory, or improve it around 1%, that's going to just add up a ton. I freaking love that. And I think that you hit on it with Journey, with what you're doing right now too. In corporations, the bigger you get and the more mature you get, I think that this reflection, and we call them quarterly business reviews. In this instance, it'll be a quarterly and a half business review. There's a reason we do them. They can sometimes get a little stale if you don't switch it up, but they're so critical because this is what you said at this time last year or last quarter. This is where we landed. Where's the disconnect? Was that an internal or an external factor? How do we adjust? So I think that this is something that has been around for a while from a corporation standpoint, and from a sales perspective, you have to update your targets, make sure that you're searching in the right places and not just getting lost in the day-to-day. Kind of zoom out, right? You and I talk a lot about zooming out and being able to look at the macro, but while we can achieve and hit the targets in the actual task and tactical. But there's no difference in a corporation or a business than as an individual in person. You have to be able to do that take review, kind of look at yourself from a third party, kind of remove the emotion as best possible, and kind of look at yourself, if you can, without judgment, and say, this is what I want, this is what I said I was going to do. Are we going to do it, or are we doing it currently?
It goes back to where if you set your annual goals and then you don't quite get there, but you didn't quite get there because of X, Y, and Z, so what do we need to work on? But what if you do get there? What if you exceeded your goals for 6 months? Well, now it's like, oh man, we're getting some juices flowing. We're getting excited. Let's up those original annual goals and reinvigorate so much more energy and motivation, not only in yourself, but also your team, to see that you exceeded the first 6 months. And then you go, and snowball into the into the remainder of the year. And I think you set those goals instead of annual, you just do them every 6 months. And it's fun to do it in January. It's fun to do, and then reassess in July. But depending on where your fiscal year is, if you're a business owner, a lot of them, most people are calendar, but I know some, back in the ADP days, they were weird and have a July through June fiscal. So it's, holiday time is when we were reassessing quotas and all that kind of stuff back then. But I mean, don't you can feel it. Like you get so jacked up when you've got that goal that you're exceeding and you're on the path to just blow it out of the water for that second half of the year. I think if you're not getting jacked up and you're like, oh, cool, I can just coast, you're falling short, man. Like if you are nailing those things and you're like, oh, I've hit my numbers for the year in 6 months, it doesn't mean it's time to take a break. Like, let's go crush those goals even further and see how far we can take it. It kind of goes back to Kobe of like, I will outwork everybody and I'll stop working when I'm retired, or, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Like that. It's not like the hustle culture or anything like that, but it's just, why not exceed the numbers or the things that you wanted to do, whether it's health and workout, like, hey, I want to get, I want to lift this weight and I'm already there 6 months in. Like, well, dang, let's go lift more. And how do we exceed that? Right. And so it's not time to coast. It's time to just even dig in further and then reset your goals to an even higher level. And that's what next level is all about, and stacking your wins and continuing on to the next level, the next level, the next level.
Rest at the end, not at the middle, I think was Kobe's famous. But the problem is when you're on this path, this if you're really trying to achieve is there an end? That's up for debate. But on that note, I would challenge the listeners This is something I really like to do that an old mentor told me, like, visualize if you can really put yourself at the holiday and the feeling that you have when you've really, really knocked off a lot of your goals and that you know you've given it your all. You have the kind of metrics and key indicators, the proof that you did it and gave it your all this year, and you're sitting there with your family at the most wonderful time of the year when you can, hopefully decompress a little bit, really think about how that's going to feel and what you need to hit to be able to enjoy it at that time. If you can really put yourself in that time zone and in that frame of mind, it'll probably give you a good understanding or feeling of what you need to be doing right now to really hold yourself accountable and see if you're hitting the markers that you told yourself you would.
And visualizing what you want to accomplish is such a strong superpower. Like, just that's a great nugget, man. That's a bamboo banger for sure. And it's just visualizing what it is you want to accomplish and then just setting yourself up to make it happen. Like, just get out there and make it happen. And that's a brilliant reminder. Thank you for that, good sir.
I love it. Dog days of summer. Quick episode here, but wanted to make sure we could get it out to you. Dear listeners, like, subscribe, tune in next week. Appreciate y'all.